Hey, Alex and Mia. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about the education planning piece of your financial plan. I know you had come to me and had asked me in particular one question, which was how much would be needed today as a lump sum to invest and to provide for all three children's education needs by investing in three 529 plans. And I'm going to answer that. But I did just want to take a moment and really applaud you for wanting to set aside the funding needed to take care of their education costs. That is so thoughtful, and just from the student's point of view, to not have to work while you're going to college and potentially get better grades because you're more freed up to focus on your studies. And then when you graduate, to not have as many burdensome debts as you might otherwise have without that help. So I just wanted to applaud you for that. It's very nice. But anyway, diving right in. I have an answer for you, and to get to that answer, I did some calculations, and I just wanted to provide you with the boring details of how we got here with the calculations. So here's a few assumptions that I used to reach that end number. The first is we're assuming 12 years of education funding needed. That's 4 years per child. Now, some students take 5 years or even more and are super senior. I might have been a 5-year myself, but we're going to assume 4 years. We're also assuming an inflation rate of 2% and an education inflation rate of 4%. So likely by the time your children start college, the tuition is probably going to inflate a little bit. So we've adjusted for that. Also, we're using a tuition cost of $23,000 per year in today's dollars. So that means that if I were to start school tomorrow, I'm assuming I would pay $23,000 per year. But of course, we've adjusted that for inflation as well. And then finally, we are also assuming an investment return of 7%. So a 529 plan is specifically for tuition and education costs. And when you plug money into a 529 plan, you do have investment choices. So we're going to invest the money once we get it there, and of course hope that it works for us. And we're assuming a 7% return on those funds. So the magic number needed, if we were to have the right amount and just slap it down today and take care of everything, would be $165,318.88. So now that's a large lump sum, and I, of course, have been looking at your financial picture, and it seems to me that you don't quite have that amount yet. So I have a few additional thoughts on things that you can do and places that you can pull from to help at least get closer to that goal of funding your children's education need. So first off, where I recommend that we begin, and you were on the trail of this thought as well, so I like the way that you're thinking about your picture and where to pull from, and that is to go ahead and sell Mia's inherited property from Aunt Belle. It's not producing any net income, it's in a poor neighborhood, and you've got a willing buyer that's ready to pay $84,000. Now this still leaves you with a need to fund the education, but it gets you a lot closer. So take that at $84,000, go ahead and plug it into the 529 plans and get it investing for you. Next is a thought that you directly told me you didn't want to consider, but I've gone ahead and considered it anyway, and I'm encouraging you just to reconsider your thoughts on this. And that would be to go ahead and use the inheritance from Aunt Belle that the three children received. Now, if there's some reason that you really didn't want to consider that I'm unaware of, just chuck what I'm saying right now. This is just an idea. But if we do use that inheritance from Aunt Belle, it could potentially increase the aid that the children could get later on. The more money they have to their name, which when they inherit funds, it's theirs, they own it, that counts against what they can receive for education. funding. So that could kind of work in two ways for them. Additionally, you had mentioned that Aunt Belle had provided some funding for a foreign language. So it seems to me that Aunt Belle was someone that valued education. So perhaps it's something that would have pleased her to know that her money was going toward funding her nieces and nephews' education. So just a thought. And then additionally, I had a few other levers that we could pull to provide that still needed amount. Now we're going to assume that you are investing the $84,000 from the sale of the property, but you still have that gap. If you don't use the inherited funds from Aunt Belle, and you still want to fund the education costs, you'd probably be stealing from your retirement. So then you're going to have a retirement funding need. So what you could do is consider retiring a little bit later than age 62. Those additional years of income can really add up. And while you're continuing to earn income, while you're working, of course, you're not yet pulling from your financial savings, your nest egg. So that is a really impactful decision if you do put off retirement. So that's a thought. Another thought, which is much easier said than done, would be to increase your income. Now, most of us are just trying to increase our income anyway, but some of us could add a side job or a side business and increase the cash income to help fund the retirement. If you were to steal from the retirement to pay for the education costs, essentially the same thing, but it could increase your chances of reaching that goal. Another thought, and this one I actually don't recommend, but it is a lever that can be pulled, and that would be increasing the risk in your portfolio. Now, this is one you really want to be careful on because you should never increase your risk more than what you can handle. In other words, if things were to go the wrong direction, then you might be below where you were before, and you might not have enough time to regain your footing. And so we want to be really careful with this one. There are a few tweaks that we could do, which we can talk about in another meeting. And then finally, the final thought I had about the education funding need would be you could consider not fully funding each of your 3 children's 529 plans. So you could fund a little bit closer to in line with what you can afford. And then we can also look at aid and potential sources that they could use to help get them closer to that actual need of fully funding it. And we can talk a little bit more about that next time. But I did want to answer your direct question on the 529 lump sum and give you some additional thoughts to start with.